Hello ladies, gentlemen and in-betweeners, welcome back to another PAP Reports. Today is Monday the 3rd of February 2020 and today we start with an update to information given in PAP Reports 28th of January regarding Gary Webb, who was arrested and held on remand for several days, even though he had proved by way of identification that he was not the person the police were looking for. Here's a quick reminder of that and a link to the full video up here. 60-year-old Gary Webb from Gatehouse of Fleet in Dumfries and Galloway has been awarded £100,000 in compensation from Police Scotland after being wrongfully arrested and sent to prison on remand. Mr Webb, who had no prior criminal convictions, was arrested at his home by detectives who had a warrant for a different person. Well, since that video, new information has come to light which gives rise to some very uncomfortable questions for Police Scotland. Previously, the information made it clear that the police didn't care that Mr Webb provided ID, and even his fingerprints showed that he wasn't the person they were looking for. It would follow then that the police must have lied to the court in order to get Mr Webb remanded. But it actually appears that the prosecutors actually had information that Mr Webb wasn't the person they were looking for, but still went ahead with the case against him and got him remanded. And that's not even the full story, because the person the police were looking for had identifying tattoos, which Mr Webb didn't. So ID to prove he wasn't the suspect, fingerprint evidence to prove he wasn't the suspect, and identifying tattoos to prove he wasn't the suspect, or rather the lack of tattoos. But yet Sheriff Vincent Smith still sent Mr Webb on remand to Adderwell Prison in West Lothian anyway. It's understood the court prosecutor proceeded under guidance from a senior Crown Office prosecutor, Wendy Barr, who had been briefed by police, convinced they had the right man. Mr Webb, 60, was confronted at home in Gatehouse of Fleet at 9 PM on April the 9th, 2015 by two detectives acting on a warrant issued by the court. They held a photograph of the real suspect next to Mr Webb's face and deemed him to be the same person. Webb was arrested, handcuffed and locked up for 4 days before his cell was opened and he was told all charges had been dropped. He raised a legal action and alerted the Police Investigations and Review Commissioner after Police Scotland logged his complaint as a quality of service issue and told him it was not being upheld. Assistant Chief Constable Alan Spears said, "We recognise the significant impact this incident and our poor initial response had on Mr Webb, and following a conclusion of legal proceedings, we'll seek to discuss these matters with him and offer an unreserved apology." The Crown Office said it was unable to comment on historical cases. Surprise, surprise. The Scottish Government said it is for the Chief Constable to consider whether changes are required to ensure Police Scotland can continue to help keep communities safe. And we understand Mr Webb has been offered a meeting to discuss the findings of the review. While police officers and staff do an excellent job in helping to keep our communities safe, this incident has clearly had a significant impact on Mr Webb, and the Scottish Government welcomes Police Scotland's unreserved apology. Whoopie fucking do. Two Thames Valley police constables have been allowed to keep their jobs after leaving a suicidal woman to die because they thought she was asleep and couldn't get in to check on her. Lucy Sessions sadly died after several years of suffering from mental health issues. She was under the care of mental health support from Oxfordshire mental health hospitals, and on the day of her death the local mental health team had received several calls from worried friends and family over reports that Lucy was threatening to kill herself. Oxfordshire Mental Health Services called the police to inform them, and Thames Valley Police were tasked with a welfare check at Lucy's address. Upon arrival at the address, they thought they heard snoring and assumed she was asleep. They apparently tried to wake her by knocking loudly or whatever they tried to do, but couldn't arouse her. So they left, apparently believing that there was no risk to her life, even after the mental health team had called the police reporting the threats to her life. 4 hours later, the unnamed constables returned to the property and found that they could no longer hear snoring, at which point they made a decision to gain entry. However, they didn't have the right equipment with them, and instead of calling for help and getting somebody to bring equipment to them, they decided to go back to Aylesbury Police Station to collect an enforcer, otherwise known as a big red key. However, it took them some time to find one. Surely they would be stored in a specific place? Wouldn't have thought it'd be that difficult to find a piece of equipment, but there you go. When they eventually got back to the property, they forced entry, attempted CPR and then called for an ambulance. The incident was referred to the IOPC, and a year later the investigation was closed, with both officers blamed for misconduct, with which the police force agreed and made arrangements for a misconduct hearing. The first officer was found guilty after failing to ensure that they had the right equipment ready to get into the house when they went back. The second officer was also found guilty after not prompting the first officer to make sure they had the enforcer to break in. So they were only guilty of not having the right equipment. Not guilty that it took them so long to get back to the property, or the fact they failed clearly in their task at the time, which was to check the welfare of Lucy, but just guilty of not having the right equipment. Both constables were ordered to get management action, which includes making an improvement plan, identifying expectations for future conduct, and pointing out how the behaviour fell short of expectations. I'm sure Lucy's family are ecstatic that the police who failed to check on Lucy's welfare, resulting in her death, are getting management training. IOPC Regional Director Sarah Green said, "Our thoughts remain with Lucy Sessions' family and those who knew her. Our investigation, the subsequent independent misconduct meetings and the inquest proceedings gave a clear insight as to what happened that day. The actions of some of the officers and staff involved fell below the standard expected. Thames Valley Police now makes enforcers readily available at Aylesbury Police Station." Judge Timothy Stead branded the lack of police action in arresting a prolific burglar as a disgrace. Graham Llewellyn was allowed to go on and commit multiple burglaries after the police had evidence of his crimes by way of a palm print taken at the scene of a house break-in in Kings Road, Rochdale on December the 19th, 2018, where he stole computer games, jewellery and a car key. But they failed to arrest him. After the failure to arrest Llewellyn, who started his burglary career aged 11, he broke into a home of a 73-year-old woman on September 23rd, 2019 in Cox Green Road while she was out at an art class, stealing, among other things, a diamond engagement ring, a locket and other jewellery left to her by her mother. Then on October the 7th, 2019, an 84-year-old woman returned to her house in Holton Lane to find the back door off its hinges and her home ransacked, with £400 in cash and euros taken. Finally being sentenced for his crimes, Judge Stead gave Llewellyn 4 years and 8 months at Her Majesty's pleasure and said, "The general public will be outraged at your conduct. You are a career burglar, that is what you do to make your way in the world. The public expect considerable punishment to be levied on someone like you, and that is what I intend to do. It is a situation no less than disgraceful that you were at liberty to commit the second and third burglaries." Well, I suppose better late than never in this particular case, but certainly couldn't say the same in poor Lucy Sessions' situation. A mother of two who was caught drink driving after providing a result of 1.5 times the legal limit during a breath test has been let off a disqualification. Although 39-year-old Nethra Kaur admitted driving whilst over the limit at Manchester Magistrates Court, she was only given 10 points, fined £200 and ordered to pay £115 in costs, after claiming a disqualification would impact on her taking her children to school. Only one person to blame for that, love. She also claims that her 41-year-old husband would be unable to do the school run as he was regularly on call in his NHS job and was tasked with collecting donated organs from across the UK. Now, although that is an incredibly important job, I'm sure he isn't the only person in the country to be able to do it. Lots of people out of work after all. And if he wouldn't be able to take the kids to school, then Nethra could simply get a taxi or bus, just as anyone else would have to. Because, let's face it, if it was you or me, it wouldn't matter what reasons we give, we would almost certainly be banned and reminded that buses and taxis exist for that very reason. I would even go so far as to suggest working for the NHS is not reason to let people off, especially when it's not you, the accused, who works for them. That would be like me saying, "Don't ban me, my missus is a receptionist for the NHS dentist." She's not. I don't have one. A missus, I mean, not a dentist. Now, I have been looking, but so far I'm unable to find any additional information. But she had only been driving for 18 months, and under the rules, if you get 6 points or more in the first 2 years, DVLA can revoke your licence to make you resit your test. However, I've so far been unable to find any information whether that's actually happened or not. I will keep looking. If I find any info, I will update you in a future report. It will be very interesting to find out if the DVLA have in fact let her off as well. Now we head on over to Wales for yet another drink driver. 32-year-old, now ex-PC, Robert Hill of Prestatyn, who had just passed his sergeant's exam, faced a special case misconduct hearing recently at Police HQ in Colwyn Bay over allegations that he had breached the standards of professional behaviour. PC Robert Hill had denied driving a vehicle with a breath alcohol count of 54, the legal limit being 35. As you would expect, the now ex-PC Robert Hill attempted to mitigate his behaviour using the good old mental state at the time argument that is so often bounded around by police who find themselves in trouble, claiming that he'd only been over the limit after downing most of a bottle of wine when he had stopped his car and entered a field to self-harm due to issues in his personal life at the time. In a statement, the force said Chief Constable Fawkes recognised that PC Hill was a good officer who was going through a difficult period in his life. However, this was balanced against the fact that PC Hill did not accept his conviction and there had been a potential for serious harm to have been caused on the night in question. Having considered all of the circumstances, mitigating and aggravating factors, the outcome was dismissal without notice. PC Hill will also be added to the barred list as maintained by the College of Policing. Thank Lucifer that the police are not simply blindly accepting every BS mitigation of mental state at the time, although I have to say there are still far too many being let off because they use that excuse. A teenager with Aspergers syndrome has been charged with a hate crime against a transsexual police community support officer, or TPCSO for short, after asking, is it a boy or is it a girl? Now, I've got to be honest, in some cases it is actually difficult to tell, and sometimes asking is the only way to know for sure. TPCSO Connor Frill was born a woman but now identifies as a man. Frill, a transgender activist and TPCSO, was on foot patrol in the town of Mold in Wales last October when he was what's been described as heckled by 19-year-old Declan Armstrong, who shouted, is it a boy or is it a girl? Frill, as said, is a PCSO and trans activist, the kind of positions you would expect to hear far worse than is it a boy or is it a girl, but the court heard how Frill was left vulnerable, distressed and embarrassed by the incident, and also heard that the 25-year-old now feels reluctant to patrol by himself in the future. I do find myself wondering whether Frill is in fact the right person for the job if they are going to be scared off the street by an offensive remark. I mean, what's going to happen when the public need protection from terrorism, knife crimes, drug gangs? I also find myself wondering if that really is the worst thing they've ever heard, especially being a PCSO. But Declan Armstrong was found guilty of violating the Public Order Act by using abusive or insulting words with intent to cause harassment. He was ordered to pay £590, including £200 compensation, and was slapped with a curfew order for 12 weeks. According to the judge, the transphobic nature of Armstrong's comments was an aggravating factor. But let's not forget that Armstrong has Asperger's syndrome. Asperger's syndrome is technically no longer a diagnosis on its own. It is part of a broader category called autism spectrum disorder. Symptoms of Asperger's include awkwardness in social situations and not knowing what to say or how to respond when someone talks to them. Missing social cues that are obvious to other people, like body language or the expressions on people's faces. Showing few emotions. They may also dislike change, ultimately leading to a severe lack of social skills. Asperger's is classed as a disability. So ultimately this is two protected groups pitting it out against each other, a situation I've been talking about happening for some time. A very interesting ruling by the judge in this case, in my opinion, and I wonder how this type of thing will play out in the future, with more and more protected groups being pitted against each other due to the government's agenda of diversion under the guise of diversity. Especially when something like this is no further actioned by the CPS.
Bruv, listen, this is a message from Chaudhry of Garmala. Any motherfucker wants to convert to fucking Christianity, We're both gonna fuck you up the ass. You fucking understand the bear? Joke with the putter.
You see, that was using abusive or insulting words with intent to cause harassment. No doubt about that at all. But the CPS chose not to action it, and that case was dropped. Whereas someone with a disability that causes them to behave sometimes inappropriately or unusually has been actioned, and now he has a hate crime conviction. I wonder how many people we're going to see in the future who suffer from coprolalia, better known as Tourette's syndrome, the involuntary outburst of obscene words or socially inappropriate and derogatory remarks, banged up for hate crimes. A video circulating online apparently showing an on-duty police constable deploying his taser while responding to an incident in Oldham Town Centre is now being looked into by professional standards of Greater Manchester Police, who have actually asked for the matter to be referred to the IOPC.
Bro, chill the out in there. Don't get cocky, bro. Relax, man. I didn't do nothing, bro. Why, man? Yo, come on. What did I do, bro? What's your taser? Hey!
In a very short video, a man wearing a police jacket who has been confirmed to be an on-duty police constable responding to an incident can be seen speaking to a man. At the start of the video, the man is heard saying, "Chill the fuck out, innit? Don't get cocky, bro. Relax, man." At that point, the constable runs towards the man and tries to grab hold of his arms. As the man breaks free, the constable pulls out what looks like a taser, shouts taser, and then chases the man into the shopping centre past stunned onlookers. Greater Manchester Police have said that the officer has been placed on restricted duties while the referral is being reviewed. Currently, there doesn't seem to be any additional information available, so I will of course update you in a future video when more information comes to light. However, I think it's abundantly clear that this constable is suffering from what's commonly known as small dog syndrome. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. Please like, comment, share and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts, as I know many of you will. And until next time, stay safe. Look after each other, from the police and other officials.
Good night, all.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you like the content and you'd like to help support the channel, you can do so. In the description of every video, there are some links to ways that you're able to help support the channel so I can continue putting out content. If you're unable to help us in that way, hit that subscribe button up the top there. If you haven't already, become a subscriber. That is support enough. Share the videos. Comment, like, it all helps. If you're looking for something else to watch, up top there is my latest video. Down the bottom there is a video that YouTube recommends for you.